first to North Queensland, where flood-weary residents are being warned of potential flash flooding today as the death toll from the disaster rises to 2. Residents in Townsville are being allowed to return home as the clean-up begins.
But there are water supply issues and some emergency warnings remain in place. Joe O'Brien is in Townsville for us this morning, while our other reporter, Sophie Johnson, is in Ingham. Good morning to you both. Sophie, to you first. What's the situation like in Ingham as we go to air?
Well, yeah, this morning you can see the water has come down a little bit overnight, certainly has receded since its peak on Monday, but the town is still completely isolated and inundated. The power is still out. It has been out for multiple days now, and there is still no end in sight in terms of that situation. And residents are unaware of when we can see that power turn back on. And for now, everyone is just trying to stay as dry as possible and helping each other where they can.
Yeah, we can see those pictures where you are. It certainly doesn't look as though the water has gone down too much, but I'm sure it has. And Joe, to you, residents who were in the so-called black zone in Townsville are now finally returning home.
There were concerns that flooding could go through 1,700 homes in those low-lying areas of Townsville, but the rain eased off, and so the Ross River essentially didn't break its banks into those areas, and all those people were allowed back into their homes yesterday. There were a lot of very relieved people going back into their homes. The federal government had announced some personal support for people affected by the floods a couple of days ago. This morning, they've announced income support. Here's the Federal Emergency Management Minister, Jenny McAllister.
It'll be available for affected people in the LGAs of Burdekin, Hinchinbrook, Cassowary Coast, Townsville and Palm Island. It'll be open from 2 p.m. today, and if you are a person who's lost income, you haven't been able to go to work because it's been closed or the road's been cut, we really encourage you to get online, check out Services Australia and see if you're eligible for this payment.
Jenny McAllister there. And so while life is returning to normal for some areas, you heard from Sophie there that the situation is still pretty dire in Ingham with the power still out, and they're having serious water issues there this morning as well. But this monsoon trough is still hanging around. Georgetown is a little spot 400 kilometres inland from here. At 3 o'clock this morning, there was an emergency warning for that community for people to leave low-lying areas of Georgetown. And there have been falls in the last 24 hours along the coast north of here of up to 300 millimetres of rain. So, yeah, the challenges continue with this system, which has caused so many problems for North Queensland over the last week.
All right, thank you to you both. And if you're watching this morning and you've been affected by this flooding, please do get in touch with us. We'd love to hear your story.
Swedish police say about 10 people have been killed in a shooting at an adult education centre in the city of Orebro in what they've described as a horrific incident. Authorities believe the shooter is among the dead. Our Europe correspondent, Kathryn Diss, has more.
Good morning, Bridget. Well, look, this is still very much an unfolding story as police continue their investigation. But what we do know is that a shooter rampaged a school for adults in the central Swedish city of Orebro just after lunchtime, going from classroom to classroom. The city is around 200 kilometres west of the capital, Stockholm. This is a school campus for adults, so we understand that's similar to what a TAFE would be in Australia, but there are also classrooms at the campus for children. We don't know what age. Police have given a press briefing where they said they believe at least 10 people have been killed, but that they are still searching for victims. They said they couldn't be clearer or more precise on the exact number of those killed because the crime scene was so large. They said that they believed that the perpetrator acted alone, that they don't believe that this is terrorist related, and that they understand the shooter is among the dead. Now, this is the worst mass shooting in Swedish history. Let's take a listen to one of the principals who had to flee for their life.
Och med kollegor och I was eating with colleagues and suddenly a bunch of students came running and said we had to leave. I didn't know why, but I realised straight away that it was serious. So I and a big group of people ran out of the school, and when I was in the schoolyard I heard a shot close by. But I and others with me just yelled, "Run, run," and we ran for our lives.
A guy next to me was shot in the shoulder. He was bleeding a lot. When I looked behind me, I saw 3 people on the floor bleeding. Everyone was shocked. They said, "Go out, get out." My friend and I tried to save the life of this person. People were very shocked. The police were not on site, and neither was the ambulance. So we had to help. I took my friend's shawl and tied it tightly around his shoulder so that he wouldn't bleed so much.
And some of the vision we've seen and videos posted on social media show people calling out as they're trying to understand what is actually unfolding. You then hear gunshots ringing out and people running for cover. Students also hiding under their desk for several hours as the school was in lockdown. So this is still very much an unfolding story. We've heard from the Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. He's addressed the nation. He's described this as a very painful day. He said his thoughts are with those who have been affected and also their relatives, and his thoughts are with those whose normal school day was replaced with terror, that no one should be confined to their classroom with fear for their own life.
It is difficult to take in the magnitude of what has happened today, the darkness that is now falling over Sweden tonight. It is with bottomless sadness that we have received the news from police that about 10 people have been killed and several have been injured in a school shooting in Orebro. What simply cannot happen has now also happened in Sweden.
We also heard from the Justice Minister, who said things along the same lines and that the public would be given more information in the morning.
That's Kathryn Diss reporting for us there. Let's get more news now. Here's Emma.
Thanks, Bridget. China has hit back at the US by imposing tariffs on some American imports. The Chinese government says it will implement a 15% tariff on coal and liquefied natural gas products, as well as a 10% tariff on crude oil, agricultural machinery and large engine cars. A 3-day heatwave has come to an end in parts of Victoria, but emergency authorities are warning people to remain alert to bushfire danger. The message comes as firefighters continue to try to contain a number of blazes in the state's west, with multiple watch and act warnings in place. A 1-year-old child has been found dead in a car in Sydney's southwest in the suburb of Elwood. Police believe the girl was mistakenly left in a hot car which was parked outside a childcare centre. The owner of the vehicle, who is a direct relative of the 1-year-old child, has been treated for shock. More than 1,000 people gathered last night at a vigil on Queensland's Bribie Island for 17-year-old Charlize Zmuda, who died in a shark attack on Monday. Warren Beach remains closed to swimmers. However, her family says they hope her death doesn't deter people from enjoying the water. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns will be forced to reshuffle his cabinet for the first time since being elected after the resignation of his Transport Minister. Jo Haylen resigned yesterday over a taxpayer-funded driver scandal in which she used her ministerial driver to ferry her to personal events. Ms Haylen has apologised and says she made an error of judgment.